Heartland Hitmen's Imperative here. We're going to be taking a look at a replay of a Terran vs. Zerg match submitted to me by Heartland Hitmen's Mats against our Zerg player, somebody else. This is a gold level matchup, or a gold level match, I apologize, on Star Station with close spawns, and we're going to kind of see how that affects us and how we can play bio against Ling Bling Muta. We'll keep in mind for this game that Mats is using a method for improvement called the staircase method, where he's limiting himself to certain units and just kind of working on his macro before worrying about unit composition and those kinds of things. So we'll see the problems of having Marine Marauder medevac against Ling Bling Muta, and kind of how we can get around those problems with some of the things that Mats does. So in the beginning of the game, we're mining. Again, I'll just make the point, you can stack SCVs, onto these closer mineral patches. Improves your income a little bit. You can even do it farther into the game. So we'll see Mats place his supply depot, and typically this is the SCV that goes to scout. He's going to use it for his barracks real quick. And I don't believe we see... oh, we do see scouting. Okay. So, what we're looking for with this scout. Typical Zerg vs. Terran play is that this hatchery comes down before the spawning pool. You can just kind of check. If this hatchery is not red or very, very early yellow, it probably came down first with this kind of an earlier scout. The spawning pool will still finish first, actually, but we can see that this has been started a fair amount of time ago. One thing that Mats actually didn't check, he didn't see either of the gases from the Zerg, and this is kind of important, because if we see Zerg taking a gasless opening, we can abuse this and we can kind of make earlier pushes, because his banelings aren't going to be out in time. So not checking these gases was a little bit of a mistake by Mats here. But he's gotten the kind of gist of what somebody else is doing as far as his build order. So we'll see him start to pump out Marines as he builds his gas. This gas is a little bit later than we might see in standard Terran play now, because Terrans have a fondness for going into Hellions, and the faster factory needs a faster gas. But we can see Mats has delayed this so that he can really focus on Marines. He'll snipe this. As a Zerg, this is kind of painful to see. You never want to just leave it hanging here for Terran. You can kind of put it off or find a high ground for it. Even like over here, no, because of this. Over here, maybe put it back here. Those kinds of things are better. You don't want to lose this. Costs you a lot, as you can see. Somebody else will now have to build up his overlords again that he would have otherwise already had. So we're going to see no scouting from our Zerg player, which is a big mistake, because if he scouts this, he'd have noticed that taking some gas would have been much more important right now. We see the triple barracks. We're going to have a lot of Marines, we're going to have a lot of medevacs, or not medevacs, sorry, Marines and Marauders, and an early push is very, very possible from our Terran. CC going down. As far as building your CCs, Marine King famously tried to go CC first against Zerg players in high-level matchups, which all in all isn't bad. You can do it, but you need to build your CC here, or it needs to be back here. Building it on the low ground is a little bit of a risky move, even this far into the game. If we did see an earlier Ling Rush or just some poke, he could at least delay this. We have enough Marines that he probably wouldn't outright deny it, but maybe think about building that up on the high ground. At this point in this game, it won't really matter, because we don't have any offensive units coming out from our Zerg. We see good usage of his energy. It's a little bit late, about 20 seconds late, but He's got his mule down in reasonable time. We don't see his bunker completely filled. This could be a little bit of a mistake. You kind of want it filled, but you know what? Against a Baneling bust, I could see why you would want it split. Just because the Banelings will all hit into the bunker to kill it, because the bunker will allow free kills on the Zerglings. So you could just pre-split your Marines by not having them all in the bunker and having some just behind your supply depot wall. We have a little bit of extra mineral right here. This could probably be devoted to a few more barracks very soon. Here we see the factory coming out. So Mats will actually never build anything out of this factory because of his restrictions with the staircase method, but we will see that he needs it for his starport. So we can see he's just planning on his starport coming down in the next couple minutes so that he can start getting medevacs out. A big portion of what he's going to have to do with these medevacs and these Marines in order to play this style against Ling Bling Muta, which actually Mats has yet to scout, but that's coming. It could also be Ling Bling Infester, it could be the somewhat less effective Roach Hydra. But as long as there are some Banelings there, that could be okay. Sorry, he'll need to do drops just to play against this, and with the Mutalisks coming out, that's going to be very difficult because we don't see it happening, but he can just kind of catch, put an Overlord over here, kind of catch the drop before it comes, because they know where each other is, or are. They know the positionings. So we see some engineering bays going down. He is allowed to have upgrades. We'll see that he's doing the little switch of this reactor, so he's building it on his factory while he waits for his starport to finish, and this is so that he can just swap the buildings and give this to the starport immediately. We actually don't see any add-ons for any of our barracks yet. This might be a little bit of a mistake. He probably wants to get those down a little faster, just to have a bit more of an early game presence in case this Baneling bust or this Ling push comes in, as in about the next 2 minutes, we'll see our Zerg player have a sizable Mutalisk force. This is enough to deal with the Mutalisks, but maybe not enough to deal with the Mutalisk and Baneling bust, especially since there's a hole in the wall that could be something a Baneling could fit through to kill these Marines and back. And our Zerg player still hasn't scouted, so we see 5 barracks. This is not going to be any kind of Widow Mine. This is not going to have tanks. So he really can devote to this Ling Bling fully. There shouldn't really be Widow Mines because there's nothing on this factory. Could be 1 or 2, nothing major. So I like the addition of 2 tech labs to begin with. 1, he can start these upgrades quicker. 2, against the common Ling Bling Muta. This is a fair thing to expect even if you're playing blind as a Terran player, especially if you're going Marine heavy. He needs to pump out Marauders, some Marauders, because he can put them in front and they'll absorb the Baneling hits, and they're very, very, very effective against Banelings. I believe it takes three Banelings to kill a Marauder. So very, very cost effective to have the Banelings be hitting the Marauders, and it gives him a little time to put those front and then split his Marines a little bit. We see very low energy on both of these. However, this is a little bit of a mistake. We can see that he's had to call down, what is it called? Call down extra supplies, as it has a different top than our typical supply depots. You never really want to have to do that unless you get majorly supply blocked by an attack from the opposition. It's kind of a bad thing to have to do normally. You really want to be using that on mules, or if you absolutely needed scans to scout. So we see 1-1 starting up for our infantry. He's started attacks first. I'm not entirely sure that matters, as he's going to be buying 2 upgrades at a time. No armory coming down. Maybe no intended continuation of those upgrades. Okay, here's our armory, so he will continue those quickly. That's a little bit of a timing mistake, I believe. A little bit of a timing error. He could have put that down a little earlier with his current supplies. We'll see that he hasn't taken his forced gas, and this is a smart decision. He's really, he doesn't need gas other than for his medevacs, and to be honest, one starport making medevacs, you can supply that off with 3 gas, or even potentially 2 gas, depending on how much, or how many you need to make. So now we see this Ling force coming out, we'll have banelings being produced. We do not have centrifugal hooks already researched, but it is, oh, excuse me, it is in production for a Zerg player. We see the Mutalisks coming in, just poking in, so now we know what build our opponent is going, but since we hopefully will have stim, hopefully have stim combat shields or concussive shells soon. There we go, stim's on the way. Stimmed Marines are very, very effective with medevacs against Mutalisks. They kind of just chew through the Mutalisks. This is an incorrect play by the Zerg player. You kind of want to lead with these banelings, as long as you've seen that he doesn't really have tanks. With this much of a bio force, even against someone you don't know is doing the, the staircase, or not going tanks. You can assume that with this much bio, he will not be having tanks. So we'll see the production of these 5 barracks start to overwhelm what the Zerg player has, especially with these medevacs. This is incorrect focusing. But good play by Mats to push off this attack. That was a lot of minerals and a lot of gas from our Zerg player that just went into that baneling attack, especially because he lost a few Mutalisks. So all in all, I believe it would be cost effective. We'll look at units lost. It was cost effective for Mats, but keep in mind that this 3 base economy has only went down fairly recently, while as our Zerg player doesn't actually even have a 3rd base saturated. So Mats is very far in the lead here. This could have been played a little bit better. He could have picked up those Marines and set them down behind, or moved them into the bunker. We don't see as many Marauders as maybe he should have. They're not effective against the Mutalisks, obviously, as they can't shoot up, but against any banelings, you really do want a heavy Marauder composition. We have 1 Marine in this medevac. I'm not sure he notices. And actually, with these medevacs, if you really wanted to be cost efficient, you could just take an SCV and repair it very quickly. We see another force coming in. This should be turned into some banelings here. Yeah. Mats doesn't actually have vision of this. It's very just barely out of his vision. Very close to his vision. We'll see Mats pick up, potentially go for a drop with these 2 medevacs. I think if he does not spot this yet, as soon as he spots this, he should probably turn those around, especially since these Mutalisks will snipe those. So this is a big loss that he could potentially take if this queen was moved properly. So losing all of this is a fairly big deal for our Terran player. It's a significant amount of resources lost right there. It does put him behind a bit. We'll see his 3rd base, or his natural, be cleaned up fairly effectively. And we can see that this Marauder just kind of tanks those baneling hits. This is really what kind of a little more of his unit composition needs to be, is these Marauders, but he's still got this 3rd base, so he can rebuild from this point. He's not that far in the hole. We have a 4th and a 5th down for our Zerg player that he's not really using. This is the point where you need to clean up some of the Mutalisks. You need to try to see about making a counterattack with a medevac or 2 full of units, because that's really what's going to put you back in a winnable position. Because if the Zerg is allowed to take more bases, he's just going to overrun you one way or another with these kinds of units. Of course, you could take more effective units. Even with these upgrades, these are nowhere near as cost efficient as, let's say, Thor tank would be against Ling Bling Muta. I disagree with the decision to keep moving these by foot. He could just, there we go, he'll pick them up, just move them that way. we'll see him snipe out the fourth base of the Zerg. Notice that he did still fly his empty medevacs with his full medevacs. These are kind of there to absorb the hits, as the Zerg player can't see what we can see as the spectators, which would be which ones are full. So these are just kind of there as a decoy, really. It's a very good play by Mats. More production. Again, mostly Marines, which I disagree with these mass baneling attacks from the Zerg. I don't think Mats knows about this fifth, otherwise he would go and take care of that. Yeah, we can see he hasn't out-scouted it. He actually should know that it's there based on this creep, but I think he just failed to recognize. This attack is again going to go fairly well for the Zerg player. These Mutalisks will easily be able to clean up the medevacs. Big problem for Mats, as he's just lost a lot of resource with those medevacs, but he has moved this Marine force in. There are no more banelings left to really deal with this, so if he can keep these Marines alive, a little bit more splitting would have been good. But he'll take out a fair amount of Mutalisks. A little bit of focus fire would have helped a lot here. Could have focused on 1 or 2 more Mutalisks than he got. We see another force. His production has been very good this game. We can see that his mineral count and his gas count are staying very, very low. To his credit, this is very, very, very hard to do, and really, really showcases kind of his ability to macro well now that he's much more focused on the macro and less on the unit composition and doing fancy micro business. I'm not actually sure if he's in the position where he's allowed to micro. There are different steps in the staircase, one where you're not allowed to micro the units you have and one where you are. He's obviously allowed to use stim, but I'm not sure that entirely counts. If he is allowed to micro his units, he should be paying a little more attention to splits. Taking out those banelings before they hit was fantastic, filling up these medevacs. A decent idea since he has cleaned up most of the Mutalisks, if not all of the Mutalisks, all but one of the Mutalisks. And he'll just kind of drop these out. I would disagree with this, actually. He should drop these in here, see if he can snipe off tack just in case there were enough banelings to kill what he's got here. But in this situation, he'll be fine. He'll move these and kill the tech. And that'll be the end of the game. So really what we've seen is, up until the very end of the game, he had a superior income to cost efficiency for his units, for the most part, even with this many resources lost. We see that the Zerg player has lost many, many more, and Mats has been substantially well off with his 3-base economy, or substantially more well off, I should say, than on this 3-base economy than our Zerg player may have recognized, because he never really scouted, he never really saw that either of these bases were down or going down. So against a 2-base Terran, this may have been effective. Against a 3-base Terran, he really needed to look at denying. So for Terran players, you know, if you can take these extra bases, if you can hold extra bases, this will win you the game against Zerg. If you can stand a similar number of bases, you will be typically much more cost efficient with your units than he will with his, and that'll put you ahead. So this was a great game by Mats. I want to load up one more replay very quickly. This is kind of showcasing, oh no, I have to quit the replay, I apologize. This will showcase kind of the Widow Mine play in TvZ, and how we can be even more cost effective. So this is Heartland Hitmen's DAP monies against Frosted Tuna. This is a little bit higher as far as leagues go. It's platinum as opposed to gold. DAP monies had informed me that this is both rank 1 platinums for the little bit that that's worth. So we will see Zerg player go very, very standard, probably go into Ling Bling as an early game. So we'll just kind of discuss why Widow Mines are so effective, and then what the Zerg player could do against them. Liquid Snoot recently put out some replays, and Day9 had analyzed them, kind of noting the effectiveness of early attacks against Widowmine in the early game, and how those kind of catch the Terran player unprepared, with a lower count of Marines or defensive units. Because Widowmines typically will be, instead of a Hellion, they all come out of the factories. We'll see this barracks first into CC. Very early factory. Had the Zerg player scouted this, he could have known by the gas before 18, before the second depot finished. Excuse me. Dat Monies has scouted just kind of a very standard build from the Zerg. Very few Zergs deviate from this build. 15 hatch into 16 pool with a 16 or 17 gas. It's very, very, very standard. So this Widowmine will be used defensively. This is just kind of thwarting 14-14 Baneling all-ins. They no longer work, as these Widowmines can just kind of slap you until you know. Just kill all of your units before they get there. These Widowmines, ideally, especially defensively, we can see that they mostly cover. They could be spread out a bit more. They could be here, here, and here maybe, or even if you wanted to say 2 here to defend the main ramp and 1 here to cover the side ramp for counterattacks. And then they'd be a little farther away from his Marines, a little less likely to friendly fire. So we'll see a Widowmine drop coming out. Oops. A Widowmine drop coming out for Dat Monies. These are typically very effective against Zerg players. Keep in mind that with the Spore Crawler here, he will be able to, in this ring approximately this big, be able to detect the Widowmines. And the Widowmine drop is really there to harass the mineral line. It's really there to kill drones. So the ideal positioning is actually right about here, right about here. So he needs to be careful not only for his medevac, but also for his Widowmines. Because the Queen can just turn around and kill them. He can just bait the Widowmine hits out with 1 or 2 drones, and just clean it up. It would be very cost efficient for him. So this might actually be better off coming to the natural over here. He drops them very effectively. They're over here. We can see that he still sees actually all the way out here from this Spore Crawler. So this will be very good. It'll be a little harder to clean up. He'll have to move out an Overseer. But he does have layer. Okay. So he is able to kill this very efficiently, very quickly. We'll get 1 more hit off, but nothing much. So you see this was semi-cost efficient, just maybe more micro than it was worth, as Widowmine drops do require some micro even without the Spore Crawlers there to continue getting good hits. We will see the 3rd base go down. These weren't burrowed properly for that fight. So we'll see that the Widowmines really had no efficacy in this battle. They made no effect. Taking the 3rd base early again. The positioning of it is good. With what he's going, which is Hellbat and Widowmine out of his factory, he has actually stopped Widowmine production. Interesting that he went for Hellbats instead of Hellions. This sacrifices map control, as does Widowmine. So with low map control, you do want to take closer bases that are along your general attack path. So if you're bulking up units here and want to move across the map, you're going to come out over here and be in position to defend this base.
Alright, well, I need to start getting my stuff together, but
We'll see kind of an unfocused tech path out of our Zerg player. Excuse the background noise. So the Baneling connections here, okay, not perfect. These Marauders did soak up some of the damage. We do have more Hellbats coming out. These Widowmines are now buried. Or burrowed. Buried. They are buried, actually. You see the Zerg player taking actually a later third base than our Terran. Somewhat interesting. A fairly big mistake on his behalf. He should have taken it as the Slayer finished. Now he's moving into high. So we'll see the drop coming in. He could actually pick up these Marines as soon as he sees that all coming in. It would have been more efficient, wouldn't have lost as much. The Mutas, again, very effective against drop play by Terrans. On the other hand, these Widow Mines will do massive damage. They take 2 Widow Mine hits to kill Mutas, and as Mutas do bunch up, as we can see, they're very, very efficient at killing large groups. A fairly expensive unit for the Zerg. We see the Zerg is continuing to supply block himself. Just a little bit of scouting. Make sure he hasn't taken what would be a 5th here, typically. See where his army is. We'll kind of slow this down. We'll watch the effectiveness of these Widow Mines against this mass Ling along with these Hellbats. He needs to essentially just protect his Marines from the Banelings so that they can take out the Mutalisks, which will protect not only his medevacs, but also his Hellbats. So we'll slow this down a little bit. We seem kind of intentionally or unintentionally skirting the edge of this Widow Mine. We see should be a couple of hits here. There we go. A couple of hits from the Widow Mines. And there are still plenty of Marines here to deal with these Mutas. There doesn't have to be a large number. There don't have to be many. Just enough. We see more production coming in. Interesting that he puts it farther up. This is a little bit dangerous. He could lose these much more easily than were they in his main, but they will cut down the movement time and increase his defender's advantage on his 3rd. So we see the standard kind of surge of Lings and Banelings with his Mutas. The Mutas, keep in mind as a Terran player, if you can snipe these Mutas, the Mutas are very hard to replace. They take much longer to build than Lings, and they're much more expensive, especially for a gas-starved Zerg. And from a Zerg perspective, if you're going Ling Bling Muta, make a few Mutas and then get out of it, because they're a mid-game unit. You can keep them for drop defense, but then you want to go, especially against Widow Mines and mass bio, you want to go to Infestor Ultralisk. That should be your later game goal. So we'll see these Widow Mines not get burrowed. We'll see the 4th base get essentially crushed, but with not as many Banelings as need be, as some of them had hit the less efficient hits on these SCVs, I guess, depending on what your view of efficiency is. He was there to shut down some of the mining, but as we can see, they're still on even bases. This base didn't die. Dat Monies is still very far ahead in economy. We can even see his income in minerals almost 1.5 times the Zerg players. We'll see. He actually burrowed his mines a bit late here. He does not have the upgrade, so this is a little bit bigger of a deal. There's an upgrade off of a tech lab on a factory, which he does not even have, to increase the burrowing time. Or to decrease burrowing time, I apologize. So we even see these 2 mines not even go down. Moving these Hellbats up first, questionable idea, as they do die to Banelings fairly effectively, as they are still light. But at this point, a little bit of an economy win from Dat Monies, but that's fine. And we see that the Widow Mines do allow him to take that effective early game economy, allow him a little bit earlier 3rd base, allow him to take that 4th base, and no map control let's remind ourselves, the Zerg player really could have effectively taken 5 bases by now. But effective defensive play, which Widow Mines are, let's not forget, even used offensively, they're a defensive unit. They're a very positional unit, similar to the tank. But very good play by Dat Monies, very good use of the Widow Mines in creating a defensive barrier for himself. So today we've looked at a couple different uses of the Terran units against very similar Zerg play at a couple different levels, and kind of analyzed into the use of Widow Mines, the use of strictly Marine Marauder medevac, kind of what you should be looking for from the Zerg player, and how you can deal with it. I hope this has been a good learning experience for you. This has been Heartland Hitmen's Imperative.